Part 138. After My Death, the Villain Blackened Again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 1385. Zuyan squatted down, her fingers touched the corners of her eyes, and gently wiped her tears. Good. Don't cry, he said. He picked her up, put him on the bed, and kissed him. What he hadn't said was that she was sobbing and crying, and he heard his heart tremble, and his heart softened instantly. However, it was just a moment of reluctance. The magpies this time are more birds and or beasts than the magpies in the plot information received by Yanj. He left Yanj until Monday morning and personally sent Yanj to school. In the past 2 days, Zuyan believed that there was a surprise song after the tune / teach drunk. The genius was so bright that Yanji did not sleep well in the past 2 days, and when he got into the car, he slapped on Zuju's legs for a moment. Zuyan's fingers touched her face, and in the dim carriage, she looked down at the woman's delicate face. Her eyes closed, quiet and well-behaved, was completely a harmless kitten, lying on his lap with a shrinking body, and seemed to be extremely dependent on him. But when he remembered how she looked drunk, he thought it was ridiculous. Yanj wants to stop the car away from the school, she doesn't want to be seen by others. But she didn't say that. It was okay. When she said that, Zuzu ordered the driver to stop the car at the gate of the campus. Yanj spit the old bacon in his heart, and said thank you very sadly and reluctantly. In fact, most people in the class know that Yanj is a rich second generation. Even if you see her getting off a luxury car, you will not have any other ideas. Zuyan watched Yanj enter the school across the window, and then ordered the driver to leave. Coming to school too early, there are not many people on campus, and few people in the classroom. Yanj sat in his seat, flipping through the host's book. The phone rang at this time. Zhao Ting called. Zhao Ting is the half-brother of the original owner. Yanj answered the call. Zhao Ting said indifferently, "Come in the grove, the medicine is here." The sound is brief. Yanj said okay and hung up the phone. The so-called grove is where two people often meet. Sometimes the original owner went to Zuyu and had no time to go home to get the medicine, which would be brought to school by Zhao Ting. In the beginning, Father Zhao was more cautious and did not want to be touched by the baby son. Most of the time, if the original owner was too late to go back, it was Zhao's father who arrived at the school gate and let the original owner leave school. However, Father Zhao always has business trips or busy times, and this matter is not suitable for others to know. So Father Zhao had to give it to Zhao Ting. This morning, nobody was around the grove. When Yanj passed, I saw Zhao Ting with his hands in his pockets and his back against the big tree. Father Zhao's genes are good, the original owner looks good, and Zhao Ting looks like a dog. Although he is a little younger than the original owner, but two people have been in the same class since childhood, they often say hello from time to time. The original owner didn't really know that this was her brother. Later I learned that I only felt sick and stopped talking to Zhao Ting. She eased her steps and walked slowly. But this is grass, and even if you walk lightly, you can hear it. As soon as Yanj approached, Zhao Ting looked up and looked at Yanj with no expression. Yanji stood still one step away from him, without moving or speaking. Zhao Ting took off his backpack, unzipped it, and passed the needle to Yanj. Yanji bowed his head and looked at the needle tube, but didn't pick it up. After My Death, the Villain Blackened Again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 1386. Many people have a sense of honey superiority when they are not exposed to drugs. I feel that I have a lot of self-control, that I am rooted in Miao Hong, and I won't be addicted even if I taste a little. Because of this, most people fall into a state of utter danger because of this idea. Just when Zhao Ting was impatient, Yanj said, "Can you sit down?" Zhao Ting glanced at the song in doubt, but he didn't speak, pursed his lips, threw the bag on the ground, and sat down. Yan Ji also sat down, then lay down, rested his head on Zhao Ting's leg, and handed him his arm. "You help me." Zhao Ting's body froze when Yanj was lying on his leg. But he didn't push people away. Glancing a little, she turned his back to him, her eyes closed. His tense look was relaxed. "I do not know." Yanj reached out to cover his mouth and yawned. "It's okay," she said. "Just do it, it doesn't matter." Zhao Ting pursed her lips. He didn't speak anymore. Instead, "Go to her sleeves." She wore a blouse with lantern sleeves, and the sleeves were tucked by him as soon as he pulled them. He had originally looked down to find blood vessels, but when he dropped his eyes on her arm, he saw the dense, blue and purple marks. He looked like he was pouring a large pot of ice dregs into the cold in the cold cellar. Trembling asked her, This is all made by that man." Yan Ji yawned again and did not respond. He just dragged his pants with his other hand and said, "Hurry up, I'm upset." She didn't seem to be a bit sane anymore. The voice was sobbing soft and soft. "Seems like crumbling marshmallow." Zhao Ting listened to what she said, and she was all over. He is still just a boy who just entered university, and his young man's urge is like a beast, which will not be blocked at all. He held Yan Ji's hand. "Don't go anymore." Yanj was still yawning, and he replied weakly, "Okay, then, you, hurry up." He knew she was like this because of her addiction. Since he entered Zhao's house, she has never given him a good look. Even if she speaks, she is disgusted. He had never heard her soft voice. He squeezed her wrist and gradually tightened. "Hurry up." Yan Ji couldn't bear it, his fingers pinched the flesh on his thigh. "I can't stand it." When he was stabbed by a painful spirit, he saw her face uncomfortable, and even tears came out, and he helped her put the needle in her arm. "It will be all right, don't be afraid." He reached out and carefully touched her hair, trying to comfort her in this way. She didn't dodge, and she didn't look disgusted. She curled up nicely on his lap, closed her eyes, and enjoyed her face. There were sweat beads between his forehead, and he dared to wipe the sweat beads from her face one by one. Put her hand on her hair again and again and again to help her follow it. He sat here without leaning against the tree, but he was not comfortable. But in this posture, he kept it all, not moving. Even touching her hair was carefully watching her look, always ready, and once she was awake, he retracted his hand. He remembered that when she first met her, she looked like a little peacock and was the most conspicuous being in the class. His eyes always follow her unconsciously. She was too dazzling. He used to be proud of having such an elder sister. When he was young, he had repeatedly imagined that she took his hand and called his brother intimately. But, there will never be such a time. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1387. Chapter 1387. Yan Ji slept for a long time. For more than half an hour, she was finally awake. Sitting up, rubbing her eyes and seeing Zhao Ting sitting next to her, her bewildered gaze just became sober for a moment. As she stood up to tidy her clothes, she walked out of the grove without turning her head. Zhao Ting didn't move. He sat there for a long time until her back was no longer visible. Then he stood up and packed up her used disposables and put them in the school's trash can. Then slowly walked towards the classroom. Back in the classroom, Yanj seemed to be sitting at a table reading a book, but it was in a state of traveling away from the sky. The original owner is a hegemon. This body is clever. As long as the original owner has a talent, the current song can make this point to 10. After passing the book a little, she could remember it. Someone poked her arm. "Did you have breakfast?" It was Sinan, who was sitting beside her when she was talking. Yan Ji nodded, I ate at home. Sinan stared at Yan Ji's eyes with dark circles, did you sleep well? Yanj said, yeah, he sniffed and said, it's a bit uncomfortable and I'm not feeling well. Sinan immediately squeezed her hand, go, take you to the hospital. It's almost time for class. Yanj hurriedly held him. I'm fine, I don't need to go to the hospital. The lesson is still important, you are stupid. Sinan saw Yanj pull the table and breathe, I will carry you away if you don't leave. Yan Ji persuaded for a moment and had to be led to walk outside the teaching room. When I went out, I saw Zhao Ting entering the door. Yan Ji whispered, do auntie pull me, you will be seen by the teacher. No matter what you say, believe it or not, I'll just hold you up. Yan Ji reluctantly, actually I'm really not sick, but I can't sleep without insomnia. I believe in your evil. The conversation between the two men went away. Men and women in the classroom were whispering. Zhao Ting walked to his seat expressionlessly and sat down. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1388. Sinan didn't think elsewhere. He looked at Yanj's general appearance on this day, and felt that Yanj's condition was very serious, and apparently she knew it. Don't be afraid, he was so gentle and soothing her, I'm here, just to draw a little blood, and my eyes closed and passed, especially easy. After the blood is drawn, I will take you to kebab. Yan Ji crying sad, no matter what he said, he was standing still. In a place like a hospital, there are many people coming and going. Everyone is staring curiously at Yanj and Sinan. These people thought that what they had got was a terminal illness, and they all sighed. It's a pity to think about girls who have a good flowering season and have a terminal illness. Sinan's temper persisted, and he also saw the appearance of Yanj. He felt that Yanj's illness was getting worse. He held Yanj in both hands and dragged it toward the window for blood test. If you don't go, I will carry you. His voice was fierce, and he threatened a bit, don't cry, I'll cry again and kiss you. Yan Ji stopped crying, and looked at him with tears in his eyes, Sinan, Sinan, please, let's go back, let's go back. Sinan kept walking. Speaking with anger, he raised his hand and slapped him on the face. You drop me, I want to break up with you. Yan Ji stopped crying and stared at him, I want to break up with you, I said I won't go, what do you care about me, why do you? In the end, he cried again. Sinan raised a brow and said, you have to go to a blood test to break up. Yan Ji had little strength and could not resist him at all, and he was dragged to the blood test window. Sinan sat down according to Yanj, pressed Yanj's arm, and pulled up Yanj's sleeve. With this pull, I saw the dense purple on Yan Ji's arm. He froze and stared up at the words in disbelief, who hit? Yanj stood up sharply, and hurried away. But she ran past Sinan, and after a few steps, she was stopped by Sinan. He said, the inspection is done first. Yanj, I don't do it, you let go of me, I said I broke up, I have nothing to do with you, why can't you force me, and you will call the police if you do this. Sinan clamped the person directly to his blood collection window. After the blood collection, a urine test was performed. Sinan was afraid that Yan Ji was unwilling to block the door of the women's toilet in person. What could Yanj say? The crying eyes were red and swollen, and he took the urine and gave it to the guy. The sound of the water rang, and the words were washed again and again. After a while, Sinan sent the urine sample and came to find Song of Songs. When he saw that Song of Songs was washing his hands, he walked over and pulled up the other sleeve of Song of Songs. There was still bruise on the arm. Yanj is drunk and violent when drunk. In fact, not only her, but Zuzu also had injuries. However, the injuries were not so severe. Most of the purple on her arm was made by herself and she wanted to show Zhao Ting that guy. I did not expect that there could be such a magical effect that two birds with one stone. Sinan asked her, who hit? The sound wasn't as angry as it was just now, but it was obviously still suppressed. Yanj bowed his head and whispered, you don't need to care. Sinan squeezed her hand, but didn't speak again. Yanj, I did everything you asked me to do. I want to go back to school now. You let me go. No, it will only take half an hour when the results come out. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1389. I don't want results. Yan Ji stared at him. But there was no lethality in his eyes, but tears, pitiful, like a helpless beast forced into the Jedi. You let me go, she bit her lip, trying not to let herself cry. You let me go. Sinan slammed her into her arms, don't let go. He said, just let it go. The two sat in the chairs and waited for half an hour. Yanj didn't speak, and Sinan didn't ask her. He was afraid that Yanj would run away. After half an hour, he took Yanj to take the list on the automaton. Sinan couldn't understand the data on the list. He took Yanj and took the list to go to the doctor he had just visited. The doctor looked at the list of Yanj, rolled up the sleeve of Yanj and glanced at the needles on Yanj's arm. The enthusiasm when he faced Yanj was gone, and all became indifferent. Doctor, what's going on her list? Does it need further examination? What's wrong with her headache? Sinan grabbed Yanj's wrist and rolled up his sleeves to show the doctor, was she hit? Would there be any injuries on her head, or blood clots? Would she like to do another CT or something? The doctor's gaze was staring at those pinholes in Yanj's arm. After seeing Yanj rest on his arm, he sighed, glanced at Yanj, turned his head to Sinan and said, who are you? As soon as Sinan heard what the doctor said, Yanji's illness must be particularly serious. So almost immediately, he said, I'm her brother, my brother, and we have lived together since we were young. Doctor, what is wrong with my sister? You can say something directly. He turned and pushed the tweet, sister, why don't you wait for me outside? Yanj sat still, her head down, tears still falling. The doctor said, she has taken drugs. If you really care about her, take her to a detoxification center on the right track. How can such a thing be touched at such a young age? Once it is on it, it will be ruined for life. The doctor's words were still ringing. Sinan pursed his lips, pulled Yanji out of the taxi, and walked towards the apartment where he lived. Yanji has stopped crying. She silently followed Sinan, like an appointed fish, lying on the chopping board and being slaughtered. Sinan looked back at her several times, and the more she frowned, the more she looked. Sinan's apartment is not far from the school. Although he lives alone as a boy, his home is strange but not stingy. When he enters the room, the ground from the coffee table is very clean. It's hard to overstate it with a window. Yanj followed him into the door, and he was seated on the sofa. Sinan handed her a cup of warm water. Yanji held the water cup in his hands and drank with a small sip. The voice of Zirazla came out of the kitchen. After a while, Sinan fried 2 eggs and made 2 bowls of tomato and egg soup. He greeted the song, eat something first. Yanji glanced at him with a sigh of relief. Probably in her opinion, as long as Sinan did not force him to ask him, it was a matter of good fortune. This look fell into Sinan's eyes, only to feel extremely uncomfortable. Yanji ate slowly. Sinan ate 3 mouthfuls and ate a small spoonful of soup staring at Yanj. He never knew that girls would eat so slowly. But he thought that she was eating so slowly, maybe she was delaying time. When she lowered her head to eat, his eyes burned and he looked at her. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 1390. Sinan remembered his buddies who often drank and drank in high school. The guy always followed him and called his boss. That guy has always wanted to learn to drive after graduating from high school. As a brother, he carries all kinds of beauties every day. Xiaobing's family is not good. He is also working as a security guard in KTV. Later, he failed to graduate from high school and did not take a driver's license as a driver. He was poisoned in KTV, because he had no money to suck, and he was killed and put in prison during the robbery. He was sentenced to 30 years as an adult. How many 30 years in life? Sinan was crazy when he was in high school. But since the soldiers went to jail, almost all of them were at ease, either obediently to college or obediently working. Never again would I watch those quizzical movies and smoke and drink and fight. Sinan stared at Yanj. He hated the poison. He still remembers the soldier, the timid and cowardly but extremely kind guy, who always had to help when he met the old lady. Xiaobing always said that it was not easy for his parents to raise him. He was not a material for learning, so he wanted to make money early to buy a big house for his parents. But the drugs destroyed him, not only him, but their family, and another dead person and that person's home. Such a horrible thing, Sinan never thought about touching it. Some things can't be touched, and they can't be touched at all. Although young, he understands this truth. He didn't understand why Yanj had something to do with drugs. She studies so well. She is the class flower in the class. She is also a rich girl. How could she want to get this kind of thing? Yanj waited for Sinan to ask. But Sinan actually didn't know where to start asking, let alone whether the people in front of him would tell him the truth. Until the end of the song, Sinan's heartfelt disturbing emotions gradually came to fruition. After he got up and packed, he went to the kitchen, washed the dishes, and wiped the table with a cloth. Then I sat opposite the song on the other side of the table. "Do you want to quit?" he said. Yan Song looked up and looked at him in surprise. Shouldn't this person have asked her how she got started and how long? But immediately, Yan Ji bowed her head. She said softly, "Can't give up." She did not answer yes or no, but said no. Sinan was clever and experienced a lot since she was a child. She instantly understood another meaning in her words. As soon as he wanted to organize her language and kept asking her, he listened to her and said, "Sinan, let's break up." The fingers on her table were twisted tightly, and she kept hanging her head, as if she didn't know it. "No," Sinan's voice simply said, "I won't break up with you." Yan Song lowered her head, and she did not speak any more. This look was like telling him that she would break up with him whether he wanted it or not. "Why can't you quit?" He reached out, crossed the table, and grabbed her hand. Her hands were twisted together, but her fingertips were cold. The words twitched and couldn't move. She looked up and stared at him and said, "Sinan, don't ask me, all right, don't ask me." She suddenly choked, tears bursting out of her eyes, and her silent and depressed mood broke out at this moment. "What do you care about me? Do you think you are mine? You don't understand anything, you don't understand anything, you only will laugh at me." After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 1391. Yan Ji burst into tears and broke his hands, turned and ran out. Sinan walked around the table a few steps to catch up with her, clutched her waist from behind, and kissed her neck. "Fifi, Fifi, I like you, I like you, I won't laugh at you, I feel bad for you, very sad." He turned her body, kissed her lips down, kissed like a storm, as if venting his likes, and swearing his attitude. Yan Song gradually softened in his arms. His palms clasped to her waist, kissing her eyebrows and tears on her face. "Fifi, Fifi, you and me, you and me. He hugged her and lay on the sofa together. The sofa was so narrow, the two were lying next to each other, almost next to each other. He squeezed the words in his arms, and held the words in his arms with one hand, and raised his eyes with the other. Fifi, you don't want to tell me, then I help you, let's quit it together, okay? It's easy to quit, it's easier for the two of us to get together. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he thought it would be fine with him. Can't quit, she cried for so long, her voice soft and husky. Particularly powerless, admit fate. She pressed half of her face against his chest, feeling the heartbeat of his chest. I can't stop it. Yes, Sinan's voice was extremely firm. A classmate of my previous high school, he died this kind of thing while working in KTV. He would let the family tie him to a chair, and after quitting for a month, quit it. Fifi, I help you, we make a plan, you are so good, maybe you can quit in less than a month. His voice was full of confidence, as if he had experienced it, and it was really easy. Yan Ji was silent for a moment, hesitant to ask, really? Low, careful interrogation, with a hint of humble hope. Sinan felt distressed when she heard her voice. He squeezed her hand and said firmly, yes. Yan Song shed tears again. She didn't cry, but her tears soaked his chest's clothes and soaked his heart. Fifi, he said, trust me, trust yourself, you can. Okay. Sinan said, just do it. He talked with Yanj and took her out of school for half a semester. He explained, the two of us can teach ourselves at home. You don't have to go to school, and the psychological pressure will not be so great. Yan Ji nodded, although his eyes were red and swollen, his eyes kept looking at him brilliantly. Looking at him is like looking at all hope. Under her eyes, Sinan was uncomfortable with a headache, but she always smiled at her. Fifi, can you tell your family? The words were stunned and they shook their heads immediately. Although the look of panic flashed on her face, Sinan saw it clearly. He didn't mention her family again. Two people went out to buy food and vegetables, filled the refrigerator, and bought a lot of fragmented snacks. Sinan told Yanj, if you feel uncomfortable, it is better to eat more snacks. He even bought a lady's cigarette, thinking that when Yanj couldn't help but let her smoke instead. In the evening, Zhao's father called. Yan Ji hung up the phone and sent a message, I'm going to cut off with you twice. Then he pulled Zhao's father's number into the blacklist. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 1392. The next day, the words were good. On the third day, it was good. Sinan felt that she hadn't touched it for a long time, so she better quit. On the third day, before daybreak, Yanj suddenly got up and walked around the house. After a short walk, he went to the bathroom to take a shower. The two people slept in a bed, but the bed was large and each occupies one side. After all, although they are all of their own age, no one is thinking about things like this in this situation. Sinan sat up when Yanj was walking on the ground. He kept talking to her, but she didn't answer. When she said that she was going to take a shower in the bathroom, Sinan was busy stepping forward to help her adjust the water. He was afraid she would rush when she turned on the cold water regardless of her care. When Yanj was taking a shower, Sinan stood outside the door and silently counted the time. Seeing for more than 10 minutes, there was only sound of water and nothing else. Sinan couldn't help but knock on the door. Fifi, Fifi. Yanj responded quickly, I'm still washing, it's okay. Sinan heard her voice was weak, but it didn't seem very irritable, so she could only wait. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour passed. Although Sinan shouted once every 2 minutes, although the people inside would respond to him, he still felt wrong. Fortunately, the bathroom door was not locked. He rushed in and saw the song slumped under the shower. She had a razor blade removed from his shaver in her hand, and another arm, with scratches and blood. She raised her head slightly and smiled at him. The water vapor was in the bathroom, and her face was covered with water stains. Obviously she was pale, but her smile was extremely bright and bright. She said, "Sinan, look, I can." Sinan hugged her and smiled at her, "You must be fine." But his smile was uglier than crying. He still remembers the desperate cry of the soldier's parents. He also remembers the soldier struggling to the ground even if he was tied to a chair during abstinence, and then used his head to scream and yell, "Let me die." He hugged the person in his arms tightly, and the blood on her arm twisted in his heart like a knife, causing him to choke with pain. "Fifi, Fifi," he kissed her eyebrows and wiped her clean and laid on the bed. Then she pulled out the medicine box from the living room to help her bandage those wounds. She calmed down for a few minutes, and by the time he noticed something wrong, she had begun to pinch her own leg. She bit her lip, her lips were bitten several times, and blood was bleeding. Her body was shaking, and tears and snot ran together. She kept yawning. In the end, he could not bear it, grabbed his hand and humbled, "Sinan, Sinan." She didn't dare to, just called him over and over again. Sinan hugged her, stroked her hair, kissed her eyebrows, pressed her hand that she always wanted to self-harm, and pressed her tightly under her. "Fifi, we will get married in the future, you will graduate and become a secretary, madam, we will have children, we will have several children, Fifi, Fifi, we will get married, there will be a grand wedding, you will put on a beautiful wedding dress." He weaves a beautiful future for her with his voice. The corners of her lips gradually rose. The voice murmured, "Sinan, I'm dirty, how could you marry me as MRSSI? No, no," Sinan said, "you are the most beautiful bride. I always want to know you. Every day I think about how I can marry you home. Fifi, you are the best and no one can replace that. Kind of good." She laughed, and burst into tears. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1393. Yanj tossed several times that night. Sinan didn't sleep all night. After she finally fell asleep quietly, he stood at the window and smoked a cigarette. After dawn, Sinan took Yanj to the detoxification clinic for consultation and prescribed a lot of medicine. However, the situation of Yanj has not improved. As time goes on, her addictions become more frequent, and the whole person becomes more and more irritable, like a beast that is about to become extinct. In a week, she was very thin and she lost more than 5 pounds. The spirit is also weak, like flowers that are nourished by moisture. Sinan was distressed, but he thought it would be better if he stayed for a while. When Songzu called, Yan Ji was eating with Sinan. Sinan glanced casually, and the caller showed the neighbor. He saw Yanj pick up his mobile phone and went to the balcony, his expression seemed a little panicked. Curious, I listened to the movement on the balcony. Vaguely heard her say the word mom, but more specifically, he didn't hear clearly. Yanj's phone hung up within 2 minutes. She hung up and calmly finished her meal with Sinan before saying, "I'm going home." Sinan looked at the words. These days, she never mentions going home, let alone mentioning her family. Even when it was the hardest and most painful time for her, she didn't have the name of her family in her mouth. But now, she said to go home. When she noticed the search in Sinan's eyes, Yan Ji slightly bowed her head and said softly, "My mother is sick. I'll go back and see her. I'll be back tomorrow." Even a humble begging. Sinan listened, feeling inexplicably uncomfortable. She has done very well now. Just going back one day, he felt that it was fine. He could feel that she wanted to strip that thing from her more than he did. He should believe her. "I'll send you," Sinan said. "Where is your house?" "No," Yan Ji whispered, "my brother comes to pick me up." She looked up and smiled at him. She asked, "Sinan, will you give up on me?" Sinan almost didn't hesitate. He returned, "No." He leaned closer and kissed her forehead. "Never give up on you, Fifi, I will never give up on you anytime." She laughed, smiled, and tears rolled out. She opened her hands, wrapped his waist around her, and buried her head in his arms. "Do you want me?" Because she was stuffed in his chest, her voice was very low, like a breath. But Sinan heard clearly. "Of course, I think." He has showered her countless times these days, and he has seen her body everywhere. He wanted her very early. She had no idea how long he had been staring at her. Even the accident when she encountered the little chubby was deliberately arranged by him. He wants her. It used to be just thinking. Now, with all my heart in mind, such as a cricket. Juvenile Jafangfang gang was unbearable. But it's okay to bear it. He wanted her, but not this time. It must be when she was reborn. Sinan didn't have time to answer. She had already looked up and bit his lip. She was like a flexible fish, swimming around him. She grabbed his hand and placed it on her waist. Her waist is very thin and thin. During this time, he almost watched her lose weight. He couldn't restrain himself. But he kept breaking. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1394. Holding the words tightly, Sinan said, "Wait for you, when you get rid of it completely, shall we do a good job?" She looked at him and burst into tears. "Sinan, do you think such a body is dirty?" She reached out to cover her eyes and murmured, "I feel like myself, too." No, Sinan kissed her tearful eyes. "I just. His voice was interrupted by her, and she kissed him again. He imagined countless pictures of him pressing her body to do whatever she wanted. He had imagined countless times that she was intoxicatingly beautiful under him. But this is not the time. In the end, it didn't go further. He said, "Fifi, don't be impulsive, we will have more tired times, but not now." She crawled on his chest for a long time, until he thought she was asleep. She whispered, "You are so good to me, so good that I don't know how to repay. I just want to use my body to replace you." "Stupid girl," he raised his lips and smiled. "In the future, we will have a lifetime. I will let you use my body to repay me well, not in a hurry." Her head poked on his chest. "Sinan, will there really be a lifetime? Will it?" He had never thought about his life before. He used to want her to be his girlfriend. "But all my life, I unknowingly took root." Yes, he held her hand and described their life. "I will be your husband at that time, and I will try to make money to support my family. You will work hard to be as beautiful as possible, and I will repay you with my body every night. There will be a child, a little girl. The little girl will be as beautiful as her mother. We will send her to kindergarten, send her to elementary school, send her to university, and when she is married, our family of 4 can gather at the new year. Playing mahjong together. Will you play mahjong?" "Will do." "That's great. We won't teach the little girl to play mahjong in the future, so that the two of us will win them together. It is not good to win too much. In case she is about to cry, we have to coax." Yanj also laughed. "Sinan, what if it's a boy? The boy, we can win a lot of his money. If he dares to cry, hit him." In the afternoon, Yan Ji was sent down by Sinan. He was afraid she couldn't help but go back and put medicine in her backpack. In fact, this medicine can also be addictive, but it is easy to quit. This is a drizzle compared to what Yanj injected. Zhao Ting's car is just outside the community. Yanj did not want Sinan to see Zhao Ting. So when he was out of the community, he waved to Sinan and asked Sinan to go back. Sinan took a few steps and turned his head again. When the driver got out of the car and opened the door for her, he could still see that there was indeed a man in the back seat, but he was blocked by the words and he did not see clearly. The glass window rose, and Yanj lay on the window until Sinan's figure disappeared, and she did not turn back. Zhao Ting sat beside Yan Ji, staring silently at Yan Ji's back. She lost a lot of weight. In just 1 week, she was thin and boneless. She didn't want that thing for more than a week, because it was so thin, it goes without saying. Can she quit? However, the man said that it was impossible to quit the medicine. The car will not return to Zhao's house. Instead, go to the place where Zhu 11 asked her to go. It wasn't until the car turned a corner that Yan Ji retracted his gaze and then lay on Zhao Ting's leg.